रुचो यजुंषि सामानि chaturhotaram cha sattam.
Other requirements are utensils, grains, clarified butter, honey, gold, earth, water, the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, and Samaveda, and 4 priests to perform the sacrifice.
Text 26. Namadeyani mantrascha dakshinascha vratani cha devatanukramah kalpah sankalpastantram evacha.
Other necessities include invoking the different names of the demigods by specific hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with the particular scripture for specific purposes and by specific processes.
Text 27. Gatayo matyasya chaiva prashchitam samarpanam purusha vayavir ete sambhara sambharta maya.
Thus, I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the personal bodily parts of the personality of Godhead. By invocation of the demigods' names, the ultimate goal, Vishnu, was gradually attained, and thus compensation and ultimate offering were complete.
Text 28. Iti sambharta sambhara purusha vayavir aham tam eva purusham yajnam tena iva yajam ishwaram.
Thus, I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord.
Text 29. Tataste bhrattara ime rajanam patayo nava ayajan vyaktam avyaktam purusham susamahitaha.
My dear son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, performed the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and the non-manifested personalities.
Text 30. Tatascha manava kale ijro rasayo pare pitaro vibhuda daitya manushya kratubhir vibhum.
Thereafter the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord.
Text 31. Narayane Bhagavati tad idam vishvam ahitam vihita mayoru gunaha sargad agunaha swataha.
All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes.
Text 32. Srajami tanyaktoham haro harati tad vasaha Vishvam Purusha Rupena Paripati Trisakti Drik.
By his will, I create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself, in his eternal form as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of all these 3 energies.
Text 33. Iti te bihihitam tata yathadam anuprachase nanyad bhagvata kinchid bhavyam sad asad atmakam.
My dear son, whatever you inquired from me, I have thus explained unto you. And you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and spiritual worlds, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Text 34. Na bharati mi nigo mrisyopalakshyate na vai kvachim me manaso mrisagatihi na me rishikani patanti asat pathe yan me yada hridayu kantaya vata drito harihi.
O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter.
Text 35. So aham samam na yamas tapo maha prajapatinam abhivanidita patihi astaya yogam nipunam samahitas tam nadhya gacchami yata atma sambhavaha.
Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in disciplinic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities and am an expert in mystic powers and self-realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand him, the Lord, the very source of my birth.
Text 36. Natosmi aham tat charanam samyusam bhavachidam swasti ayanam sumangalam Gyoya atma maya vibhavam sma paryagad yatha nabaha swantam atha pare kutaha.
Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So, what can others do when the Lord Himself is unable to estimate His own limits?
Text 37. Naham na yuyam yadritam gatim vidur na vama deva kim utapare suraha tanmayaya mohita buddhyastve idam vinirmitam chatma saman vichakshmahe.
Since neither Lord Shiva nor you nor I could ascertain the limits of the spiritual happiness, how can other demigods know it? And because all of us are bewildered by the illusionary external energy of the Supreme Lord, we can see only this manifested cosmos according to our individual ability.
Text 38. Yashyavatra karmani gayanti ya asmad adayah nayam vidanti tatvena tasmai bhagavate namaha.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose incarnations and activities are chanted by us for glorification. though he can hardly be fully known as he is.
Text 39. Sa esha adha purushaha kalpe kalpe shrujatayajah atmatmane atmanatmanam sa sanyachati pati cha.
That supreme original personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, expanding his plenary portion as Mahavishnu, the first incarnation, creates this manifested cosmos, but he is unborn. The creation, however, takes place in him, and the material substance and manifestations are all himself. He maintains them for some time and absorbs them into himself again.
Text 40 and 41. Vishuddham kevalam jnanam pratyakya samyag avastitam satyam purnam anadi antam nirgunam nityam advayam rishi vidanti munahya parasantat mendriya yasyaha yada tad eva sattarkesh trido yata viplutam.
The personality of Godhead is pure, being free from all contaminations of material tinges. He is the absolute truth and the embodiment of full and perfect knowledge. He is all-pervading, without beginning or end, and without rival. O Narada, O great sage, the great thinkers can know him when completely freed from all material hankerings and when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of the senses. Otherwise, by untenable arguments, all is distorted and the Lord disappears from our sight.
Text 42. Adyovatara purusha parasya kalaha svabhava sad asanmanascha dravyam vikaro guna indriyani virat swarat sanu charishnu bhumanaha.
Karan Arna Vasai Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause and effects, mind, the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non-moving.
Text 43 and 45. Aham bhavo yajna ime prajasa dakshadayo ya bhavad adayascha swarloka palaha kagaloka palaha nirloka palastaloka palaha gandharva vidyadhara charanesha yaksha rakshuraga naga natah yava rishinam rishibi pitranam daityandra siddheshwara danavendraha anya cha ye pritapishacha bhuta kusmananda ye yadu mriga pakshe adishaha yatkincha loke bhagwan mahashwad ujah sahaswat balavat क्षमावत श्री हरि विभूति आत्मवत अद्भुतर्नाम तत्वं परम रूपवत अस्वरूपम.
I myself, Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, great generators of living beings like Daksha, and Prajapati, yourselves, Narada and the Kumaras, heavenly demigods like Indra and Chandra, the leaders of the Bhuraloka planets, the leaders of the earthly planets, the leaders of the lower planets, the leaders of the Gandharva planets, the leaders of the Vidyadhara planets, the leaders of the Karnaloka planets, the leaders of the Yakshas, Rakshasas, and Uragas, the great sages, the great demons, the great atheists, and the great spacemen, as well as the dead bodies, evil spirits, satans, jinn, kusmandas, great aquatics, great beasts, and great birds, etc. In other words, anything and everything which is exceptionally possessed of power, opulence, mental and perpetual dexterity, strength, forgiveness, beauty, modesty, opulence, and breeding, whether in form or formless, may appear to be the specific truth and the form of the Lord, but actually they are not so. They are only a fragment of the transcendental
यतो
potency
यन्दृशा
of the
अम्नाति
Lord.
लीलावातरन् पुरुषस्य भूम्नः अप्यातं कर्णकाशया शोषन् अनुक्रमिष्यत इमान् सुपिशान्.
O Narada, now I shall state, one after another, the transcendental incarnations of the Lord known as Leela Avataras. Hearing of their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Therefore, they are in my heart.
Hare Krishna, everyone. We'll stop over here. Please forgive me for my mistakes and thank you for giving me the opportunity to recite the verses. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Such nice recitations. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to say something today. We are discussing from the second canto, 6th chapter, verses 40, 41, and 42. Is that right? I think so. Let me share my screen.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. 40 to 42?
Yeah, I'm not able to share my screen. I don't know if
Oh, I
someone can
might be
give me.
lost. I'll just check again.
Yeah.
You know, please.
I can see now. I can do it now. Thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah, text, if we can just start with text 40, 41, and then 42. All the three texts have got very long purport. So maybe we can read some of it and then discuss. Vishuddham kevalam jnanam pratyak samyag avastitam satyam purnam anadiyantam nirgunam nityam advayam rishi vedanti munaya prasan tat mendriya saya yada tad eva sat tarkhes tiro dhyeta viplutam. Translation by His Holiness, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead is pure, being free from all contaminations of material tinges. He is the absolute truth and the embodiment of full and perfect knowledge. He is all pervading, without beginning or end, and without rival. O Narada, O great sage, the great thinkers can know him when completely freed from all material anchorings and when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of senses. Otherwise, by untenable arguments, all is distorted and the Lord disappears from our sight. Purport. Here's an estimation of the Lord apart from his transcendental activities in the temporary material creations. Mayavad philosophy tries to designate the Lord as contaminated by the material body when he accepts forms of incarnation. This sort of interpolation is completely denied herein by explanation of the Lord's position is pure and unalloyed in all circumstances. According to Mayavad philosophy, the spirit soul, when covered by nescience, is designated as jiva, but when freed from such ignorance or nescience, he merges in the impersonal existence of the absolute truth. But here it is said that the Lord is eternally the symbol of full and perfect knowledge. This is his speciality, perpetual freedom from all material contaminations. This distinguishes the Lord from the individual, common living entities who have the aptitude for being subordinated by nescience and thus becoming materially designated. In the Vedas, it is said that the Lord is Vijnanam Anandam, full of bliss and knowledge. The conditioned souls are never to be compared to him because such individual souls have the tendency to become contaminated. Although, after liberation, the living entity can become one with the same quality of existence as the Lord, his very tendency to become contaminated, which the Lord never has, makes the individual living entity different from the Lord. In the Vedas, it is said, Shuddham apapa vidham. The individual Atma becomes polluted by sin, but the Lord is never contaminated by sins. The Lord is compared to the powerful sun. The sun is never contaminated by anything infectious because it is so powerful. On the contrary, the infected things are sterilized by the rays of the sun. Similarly, the Lord is never contaminated by sins. On the contrary, the sinful living entities become sterilized by the contact with the Lord. This means that the Lord is also all pervading like the sun, and as such, the word pratyak is used in this verse. Nothing is excluded from the expansion of Lord's potency. The Lord is within everything and he is all covering also without being disturbed by the activities of the individual souls. He is therefore infinite and the living entities are infinitesimal. In the Vedas, it is said that only the Lord alone exists and all other existences depend on him. He is generating reservoir for everyone's existential capacity. He is the supreme truth of all other categorical truths. He is the source of everyone's opulence, and therefore no one can equal him in opulence. Being full of all opulences, namely wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, certainly he is the supreme person. And because he is a person, he has many personal qualities, although he is transcendental to the material modes. Actually, it's still a long purport. I'm going to skip it and move to the next verse, if it is okay with you. So verse 42. Adyo avatara purusha parasya kala swabhava sad asan manascha dravyam vikaro guna indriyani virat swarat stasnu charishnu bhumna. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Karanarna Vasyai Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause and effect, mind, the elements, the material ego, the mode of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. We'll try to read part of the purport again. It's purport by Srila Prabhupada. That the material creation is not permanent has been discussed many times herein before. The material creation is but a temporary exhibition of the material energy of the Almighty God. This material manifestation is necessary to give a chance to the conditioned souls who are unwilling to associate with the Lord in the relationship of loving transcendental science. In loving transcendental service. Such unwilling, conditioned souls are not allowed to enter into the liberated life of spiritual existence because at heart they're not willing to serve. Instead, they want to enjoy themselves as imitation gods. The living entities are constitutionally eternal servitors of the Lord, but some of them, because of misusing their independence, do not wish to serve. Therefore, they are allowed to enjoy the material nature, which is called Maya or illusion. It is called illusion because the living entities under the clutches of Maya are not factually enjoyers, although they think they are being illusioned by Maya. Such illusion living entities are given a chance at intervals to rectify their perverted mentality of becoming false masters of the material nature. And they are imparted lessons from the Vedas about their eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Vedeshcha sarver aham eva vedya. So this temporary creation of the material manifestation is an exhibition of the material energy of the Lord. And to manage the whole show, the Supreme Lord incarnates himself as Karuna, Dakshaya Vishnu as well, just as a magistrate is deputed by the government to manage affairs temporarily. This Karuna Dakshaya Vishnu causes the manifestation of material creation by looking over his material energy, Sa Eksat. In the first volume of this book, we have already discussed to some extent the explanation of verse Jagre Purusham Rupam. The duration of the illusionary play of the material creation is called Kalpa, and we have already discussed the creation taking place in Kalpa after Kalpa. I'm probably going to stop here. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Savadutam Savadu Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatare Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I seek all of your blessings that I can say something that is useful. As you know, I have got no knowledge or realization, but I'm trying to repeat something that I've heard in the various lectures. In particular, I heard a lecture from Vishwarup Prabhu. I think he runs the hospital in Mumbai. I heard a lecture from Shubh Vilas Prabhu and a few others. But so I'm going to say what Prabhus have said, and hopefully, with your blessings, there may be something good which comes out of it. I thought there were probably three areas we can discuss. One is the glories of the Lord. I mean, these three verses are all about glorification of the Lord in various ways. So we can discuss that. I think then it also goes into the qualification of a devotee. I think it talks about we need to be pure to understand the Lord. So it starts to talk about what are qualifications to practice, and maybe we can also, I mean, depending on time, we can spend some time on. So, what will it take to get to those qualifications, especially for people like me who have a long way to go? If it's okay. I mean, and before we begin, I think whenever I hear Lord Brahma, which is in this case glorifying the Lord, it's amazing. You know, Brahma Samhita is amazing, and one particular pastime always touches my heart. I mean, you've already read that in the previous chapters where Narad Muni comes to Lord Brahma and starts to glorify him and says, you know, you are the creator. You create the universes, and there's no one above you, and things like that. And I put myself in his shoes, Lord Brahma's shoes. If someone is so big, um, it's very easy when someone is saying you're so big, so good, to accept it. Of course, he's so great and so powerful, but he immediately corrects Narad Muni and says, well, all his power comes from the Lord, and he starts to glorify the Lord. So, Lord Brahma, clearly, he sets an example as to how we should be constantly glorify the Lord. And even if someone glorifies us, how do we pass those glories to, as we say, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and to Guru and Gauranga and to the Lord. It's amazing how he does that. I mean, this particular what these verses about, I mean, I would say they're pretty much the foundations of bhakti, right? And Canto 1 and 2, as we know, um, are mentioned as the um, lotus feet of the Lord, right? So, like Srimad Bhagavatam is the manifestation of the Lord, and like Canto 10 is the lotus face of the Lord, and the cantos 1 and 2 are pretty much the foundations, and they give us entrance into the path of bhakti towards Lord. It is said that when we understand the glories of the Lord in the way it is described even in these verses, and I mean, pretty much the whole how extensive are the Lord's glories in his um, um, in his manifestation as Karunadakshaya Vishnu, Karpadakshaya Vishnu, Shirodakshaya Vishnu, but more generally how he's a creator, how he's how great he is. Once we understand that, then we can, as we progress in Srimad Bhagavatam and move towards the 10th canto, we can appreciate the Lord as an ordinary child. Like otherwise, one can easily mistake Krishna when he is, running around, when he is playing with his cowherd friends, when he is running because his mother is running behind him with a stick, when he's telling lies, when he's stealing butter. We may easily mistake him as an ordinary child because a lot of our children, all the children are naughty and they do things like that. But there is a difference. This is the Lord Himself, and actually hearing the glories of the Lord, we can then appreciate that this is the same Lord who is, you know, doing that as His Leela. As Prabhupada always gives this little example that there's someone who visits the Prime Minister, I think of UK, and he's waiting outside in the reception, and first the time comes when it was his appointment time and he's still waiting, and then after 15 minutes he sends a message, and then um, again he was asked to wait, and then half an hour passes, an hour passes. After that he gets impatient. After sending multiple messages, he wants to see what the prime minister is doing, and somehow he comes and peeks in, and he sees that the prime minister is on his two hands on the ground, acting like a horse to his grandson. And then, of course, then later the prime minister comes, and then it's the same person, but knowing that it is a prime minister doing it rather than an ordinary person, you have it is the same Lord who is Krishna in Golok Vrindavan and acting in a very ordinary way in one sense. Of course, he also shows his majestic abilities and powers, but also, he's naughty, and he's interacting with his devotees in various rasas, which are not just awe and reverence, but also the other rasas of Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya ultimately. So it's amazing, and also that's when, even when he does things like he runs away from the battlefield, we glorify him that he's Ranchor. Shub Vilas Prabhu said, glories of the Lord are unlimited, but he uses a particular verse which he shared, and he told lots of stories against that. So maybe I'll look to share that verse very quickly, and then I can share some of the things he mentioned when he was talking about this. He quoted a verse from 10th canto, 10:36. Nama Parama Kalyana, sorry, Namaha Param Kalyana, Namaha Param Mangala, Vasu Devaya Shantaya, Yadunam Pataye Namaha. So again, this is glorification of the Lord. Uh, in his four qualities, which is also there, which is very similar to the qualities mentioned in the verse that we were discussing. And Lord is called by different names based on his various qualities. So he's, of course, in our verse, it was Adi, Ananta. There's so many qualities of the Lord, which are also his names. Where in this particular verse, the four qualities described are Param Kalyana. So he is all auspicious. I just said that how when Lord Chaitanya appears, it is the time of lunar eclipse, and I mean, in our culture, we know that times of eclipse is considered to be most inauspicious. Mataji, if you can go on mute, please. Yeah, so Lord is considered as Param Kalyana, is considered as all auspicious. And when, Lord Chaitanya appears, we know that how it was the time of lunar eclipse, and generally, at least people from the Indian background, we consider the time of eclipse as Grahan, which is, most inauspicious. So how do we reconcile the two? And it is said that when in Navadvip during those times, when it was eclipse time, everyone of all backgrounds and religion would go into the Ganges and would be chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And that's how everything was so auspicious, and became so auspicious when Lord was appearing, and he brought auspiciousness. Another example which is given is of Gajendra. We all know the story of Gajendra Moksha. When Gajendra was unfortunately, his legs were in the jaw of the crocodile. In one sense, he would say that he was in the most inauspicious time of his life. Like his friends, relatives all tried and then they left. And just at that time, when he had lost all hope, he saw a lotus flower. Um, and it is explained that in previous life, Gajendra was Maharaj Indradumna. And Maharaj Indradumna used to daily offer to the Lord 1,000 petal lotus and used to chant all the mantras. And in this moment, a lotus came to Gajendra and he picked it up and offered to the Lord, and he chanted all the you know verses which he had learned in his previous life. And having offered, as soon as he started offering the prayers and the lotus, his time changed from inauspicious to auspicious. And we know how the Lord came and then killed or liberated Huhu and then took Gajendra in his, constitutional position or transcendental form back with him, back to Godhead. There's a story which happened in the Tirupati temple. Shubhalas Prabhu was saying how there was one Mataji who came to ISKCON temple in Tirupati, and she heard that about the glories of the holy name. And he asked the question to the person there, I think probably a brahmachari. She said, if I chant the holy name, will it help me in sleeping? Or he said, of course. So many times when we are chanting, Nidra Devi is actually acting so strongly. So I'm sure it'll help you in sleeping. And then she chanted 16 rounds. She learned how to chant, and then 16 rounds then and there. And she went back. A week after, she came back to the temple, and she told a story how the holy name had changed her life from inauspicious to auspicious. She said that 10 years back, once I think she and her husband had gone for a picnic in a lake, and somehow the husband went into the lake for a swim, and then a crocodile had got hold of him, and in front of her eyes, the crocodile pretty much ate the husband, and she couldn't sleep for 10 years. For 10 years, she could sleep, and last 1 week, since she has started chanting, she could sleep, and slowly the whole family became devotees, and their faith in holy name increased so much. the next quality in the verse, I'm conscious of time, it's 20:33, so I'm going to speed up, was Nama Parama Mangala, which is Mangala is he only does good to us. It said that, when Lord Ram killed Vali, his his wife Tara came and she started to glorify the Lord because she knew the position of the Lord. And she said, your eyes are red. And Prabhu was saying how the eyes, whose eyes are red, they can be red because of anger, they could be red because of if someone is crying too much, or someone is laughing too much or something. And then she says, well, your eyes are red because you haven't slept, and you don't sleep because you're constantly looking out for your devotees. Then he says in Vishnu Sahasranam, there are two names of the Lord, Nimisha and Animisha. One is you never sleep, and second is you're always sleeping. And the example is given that, Jagannath always has his eyes open. He's constantly looking, and he wants to look at the good in the devotees. Whereas Ranganath, um, he's lying down with his eyes closed because he doesn't want to look anything bad in his devotee. So he's always bringing good in everyone. In fact, it's said that Krishna, he organized good for everyone. Even when he killed Kamsa, he didn't become the king himself. He established Maharaja Ugrasen as the king. When he killed, I think, Jarasandh, he established son of Jarasandh in his place. When he helped kill Kauravas, he established Yudhishthira Maharaj as a king. So he's always doing good to everyone. I think next quality was Vasudeva Shantaya, how he brings peace in our life. And the example is given of Mahaprabhu when he was, going through the Jharkhand forest, and he sees a tiger sitting on the middle of the road sleeping, and his personal servant says, don't go near him. I mean, and Mahaprabhu just goes and kicks the tiger. It's said never to kick a sleeping tiger, but then he says, Jeev Jago, and he starts to sing kirtan. And how the whole kirtan has a amazing impact, where the tiger starts to put his two legs up and starts to chant and dance, and then the deer comes and they also start to come and dance. And in that instance, the tigers and the deers would hug each other and dance. So, like, just Mahaprabhu established that, how during kirtan, even like or people of completely opposite nature can come together and dance. And as Narad Muni always says, sorry, the Lord says to Narad Muni, Nam Tishtami Vaikunthe Yogi Nam Hridaya Nacha Yatra Gayanti Mad Bhakta Tatra Tishtami Narada. He says, I don't stay in Vaikuntha. My place is not in the hearts of the yogis. Wherever my devotees are singing my names and glories, that's where I live. So, and then the fourth quality in this verse was he is Vasudeva Patai, which is he's the controller, and how Krishna's hand is there in everything, and the pastime of Samudra Manthan is given. How like initially, after the demigods and the demons agree to do Samudra Manthan, they try to lift up the Mandarachal mountain, but like there were millions of them, but they couldn't lift. Half of them had their hands under it. Some were, like half caught under it. No one could lift it, and they were really getting hurt. And then they, surrendered to the Lord, and the Lord comes on Garuda, lifts the mountain, also takes them all and brings them to the ocean. You all know, but that's only one thing. And then when they um, put the mountain in the ocean and start to churn, it starts to sink. And again, they pray to the Lord, and Lord comes from underneath and comes as Kurma avatar and gives shelter. Then they starts to churn, and the mountain starts to move. And when that happens, they again pray to the Lord, and the Lord comes on top with 1,000-handed form, as I think Ajit Avatar, and then he gives stability to that. And then they get too tired, and Vasuki is completely tired, and then the demigods and demons are not able to do it. And then Lord comes in the form of mode of goodness and enters the demigods. He comes as mode of passion, enters the demons, and as mode of ignorance into Vasuki, and allows them to churn. And then, of course, when the Amrit comes out, he comes out as Mohini Murti to distribute. So clearly, I mean, the glories of Lord are unlimited, and we can keep going. I'm just conscious of time. But two other things we have to discuss. Maybe I'll spend 5 minutes each, if it's okay. Can we? Yeah, we'll keep going, and I'll not be offended if you have to drop, but keep going for 10 more minutes with your permission, please. So I think, of course, in the original verse, if you look at it, the importance of, or what is said in the verse, if I read the translation again, is that the Lord is completely pure, and we need to be free of all material hankerings, um, and also be pure to have any chance of understanding him or following the path towards him. And I said, like, one has to be pure to understand someone who is pure. So one example is given, like, if you are looking for a really good surgeon, or a specialist doctor, who would you ask as to where and which doctor you should see? You will ideally ask someone who has got some medical knowledge, who understands who is who, and then they will be able to guide us that this type of surgeon and here in this hospital is specialist, and you should go and try and show to this surgeon or this doctor. So, like, to be able to understand someone's ability in something, you have to have some of it. Like, Prabhu was giving an example. You take your car to a mechanic, right, or to a garage, and they say, well, there's so many things which are wrong. The piston is wrong. The engine is wrong, and this is not working, and that is not working. Without knowledge, you'll not know what to say or even question them. And then the only way you can do that is you call a mechanic friend and say, well, which of these things really makes sense? So we need to have a little bit of knowledge to be able to, go in that direction. Similarly, um, you know, and it's said that when we're in the field, we understand more. Similarly, if we have purity, then there is a way for us to understand someone who is completely pure. And it's also said that his name is Adokchaja, right? So how can he be known by someone who is impure? And that's why he comes in the deity form, to allow us to serve. Um, um, there is it's also said, like, of course, the shloka start as Vishuddhas. He's Vishuddha Sattva, right? He's beyond the Tamaguna, Rajas, Sattva, but like he's Vishuddha Sattva, like he's so it is completely pure vibrations. And if you want to sink into his vibrations, like we tune up in the radio, right? If you're trying to sync up to the frequency, we have to tune ourselves up. Otherwise, we'll be like, the blind men who are trying to look at various paths. There's a story which goes like there are four blind men, and they're near an elephant, and they're trying to establish what object is this. So there's someone who holds his trunk and thinks it's a pillar. Someone who holds his back, or touches his back and think it's a board, or someone who holds his tail and thinks it's a broom or something like that. And so but someone who has eyes can see that it's an elephant, and it's the same. We need to have the purity so that we can have the eyes to be able to see the Lord. And purity is the force. So I'm just sorry, I'm rushing, just conscious of time. If I say, so how do we purify ourselves, right? Like what's the how? And I was discussing with Sham Rupa Prabhu, and he said something really nice. He said, we have to purify our senses, we have to purify our mind, and we have to purify our intelligence. And then how do we do that, right? So how do we purify our senses? We have to engage our senses in Lord's service. The more we engage each of our senses in different services to the Lord, and then we can purify those senses. How do we purify our mind? We know what's the meaning of mantra. Man is the same mind in the mantra, right? So mantra meditation, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, allows us to purify our mind. But we all know this. Still, it's not easy, at least for someone like me. And it's said then we have to get more spiritual intelligence. We have to do sadhu sangha of pure devotees, so that we can, through intelligence, be able to be more sincere in our sadhana, in our mantra meditation, in our service, and ultimately purify ourselves, so that with that purity, one day we can know and love the Supreme Personality of Godhead. With that, I'm sorry I overran, but please forgive my offenses. And I beg for forgiveness for any of my offenses. If there are any questions or comments, maybe we can take them, or we can call it there.
Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhuji, as always. I have just a small, humble request, Prabhu, if you don't mind. In future, I think if possible, we should try and avoid skipping Prabhupada's purports. I know they're long, but the purpose of these sessions is to get the nectar of Prabhupada's Vani. It's better we say less if need be than to skip Prabhupada's purports, is my personal opinion.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I hope you don't get offended, Prabhu.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Wonderful
Thank you so
class.
much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for a wonderful class, Prabhuji. It's very nectarian. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There's nothing else. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Sripati. Honestly, it's really, you really explained the whole two verses very nicely. I sort of go along with Shailesh Govinda Prabhu that, I think it's best that we read the purports, because it has its own potency, so that just by hearing and we can get, because we are not purified, so Srila Prabhupada's purport would help us to purify ourselves. And I also understand how you're glorifying. Glorification is one of the best, best quality. Whoever we speak, I think we had a discussion on one of the verses, which was one of the Srimad Bhagavatam verses, and it was, I mean, like Arjuna when the Ashwatthama throw the the Brahmastra, and it was such a I mean, amazing, dangerous time. I mean, Arjuna didn't just ask Krishna just what's happening. Before he even asked Arjuna, he just glorified Krishna so much, and then he asked, what is that? Then Shila. So I think glorification is the wonderful way we can get purified. If we glorify the devotee also, it's really good for it's beneficial for us. I also was listening to that day Shamhuri Prabhu's class also, one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associate who they came. It was their kind of a normal thing to glorify all the devotees. So it's so wonderful that you also spoke about the glorification. Actually, it's really helps us to purify out within our heart, because glorifying is just so wonderful, and you did that through the whole 2 verses. So I find it very beneficial actually. Thank you so much for your wonderful class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your correction as well, Shailesh Prabhu and Palika Mataji. I'll keep that in mind. There's no other points. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Vanchikalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu devacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.